When you're in your 20s, you make coffee at home.
Uh-huh.
My wife and I never, like maybe at like a special date, we on a weekend get a Dunkin' Donuts or a Starbucks.
Uh-huh.
Now I can get a Starbucks whenever the fuck I want. That's like, I've reached that point in my life.
Yeah.
And I can get a pack of gum at the fucking grocery store because I fucking want one. But I'm not giving them a good example because I can buy a wrap at Chipotle whenever the hell I want. It's not a big deal for me anymore.
Yeah, it's like you don't want to have to suffer just so your kids can see the example of suffering. It's like, no, I made it, but you haven't.
Okay, so let's record the intro now.
So what is Milkless? Because I think we start with the name.
Two dads, we love our kids, but then we also need them to know that we're like pretty cool and it's not like a wimpy podcast. So, hey, hey, Milkless.
Hey, welcome. Hey,
Milkless. Call the audience, Milkless. What's up, Milkless? Max coming at you.
What if that's it? That's our first take.
All right, Matt, today we are talking about gratitude, or more specifically, the spoiled fucking brats living in our house. Just kidding. I would never say that. And
you just did say that, Maxie.
Just to, I'm just trying to be funny. I don't get a lot going for me here. So I feel very conflicted about this because, we have a little bit of more money than I did growing up. And, you want to get things for your kids. You want to, give them every opportunity, right? But at the same time, I also sometimes find myself saying at the dinner table or this or that, like when they don't want to do this, I swear it's been something like, I don't want to go to the movies. And it's like, back in my day, I would have fucking cut off my left nut to go to the movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
You always say on the show, like, kids don't learn by listening to you. They watch you. Mm-hmm. So just telling them all the time that you should be more grateful for this or that. I'd love to get into it with you today. We got some studies around us out as we're diving in. This is really important to me because I don't think I'm doing it great.
Well, when you hear the word spoiled or entitled, I guess that can mean a lot of different things. It could mean spoiled in terms of like material goods. They're just used to getting whatever they want. It could also be spoiled in terms of like they don't have much of a work ethic, which is similar, but it's not the same thing. But it seems like what you're wanting to hit on is like the fact that they feel grateful for the things in their life that are great, which is tricky because like the nature of childhood is that you have nothing to compare it to. So you just think that like, that's what it is. And ultimately, like as parents, you kind of want them to take for granted that they're taken care of so they don't feel grateful for being taken care of. You know what I mean?
Well, the impetus for this specific thing was obviously things that I've been going through with my kids, but also there's a Psychology Today article from 2022, April 22nd, 2022, that basically compiled something like 15 plus different studies, research over the last 30 years. And the long and short of it is like childhood overindulgence can lead to harmful outcomes in adulthood. I'm just going to do it really quick and then we'll see where that gets us. What is overindulgence? So giving them too much of what looks good, too soon or for too long, giving them experiences that are not appropriate for their age, giving things to children that meet the adult's need, not the child's need, giving a disproportionate amount of family resources to one or more children, doing so much of something that it's like actually does active harm to them, or at least stagnates them, and then also overindulgence is, I think, a form of child neglect in a way. It hinders them from mastering their needed developmental tasks and stuff like that. So what does it cause, the compilation of all these studies? Well, one, they're stuck in the center of their own universe. Two, development of disrespectful attitudes, a sense of learned helplessness, confusion of wants and needs. I'm going to save my favorite two for the end. An increased sense of irresponsibility, poor self-control skills, lack of meaningful relationships, so many different things. Materialistic values contributing to unhappiness, depression, money management.
It was funny when you said lack of meaningful relationships. I was like, why would that follow? Oh, because they're annoying.
Yeah.
They lack meaningful relationships because they're a spoiled piece of shit.
Right. And here are the two that are the ones that I want to work on. They develop an overblown sense of entitlement. So adults who are overindulged as children often feel that they are entitled to more of everything and they deserve more than others. and also lacking in gratitude. They feel that they don't have much to be grateful for and are not able to appreciate the people, events, and situations that have been a part of their life. So overindulgence typically occurs in 3 ways: either 1, too much; 2, over nurturing; and 3, a structure that is too soft. That's the framework for the episode today. The problem for me that we've said on the program before is like, I don't want to create like undue challenges or stress for my kids. Like, for example, if they forget their backpack at someplace and it's lost, am I going to make them like work that off? It was an accident. You know, like I'll just buy them a new one. But then again, I don't want them to think that like backpacks grow on fucking trees over here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's like, there's other things. Like, we live in a ski town. The kids ski on the weekends. It's their favorite fucking thing to do. But, you know, the thing about transitions, like if they're watching a good TV show in the morning, I don't want to go to skiing. I hate skiing. And I can't believe I'm having this conversation with my children. Like,
yeah,
but you love skiing.
Yeah.
You should
like, I couldn't afford to go skiing until I was in my 30s.
Come on.
It's tough because I think your point is well made that telling kids to be grateful is obviously useless, right? Like reminding them that like, this is a special thing.
I think in the moment when you're angry at your kids, it definitely doesn't work.
Yeah.
But I've found some things that I've been trying to do. I don't know if they're working or not, but you always talk about like the power of story, and I'll just like tell some stories. Like, you know, we didn't have to live in this town. Here's where we also could have lived. And here's what that would have been like.
Just show them a picture of like Mogadishu. Just be like,
yeah,
dude, we could be dodging warlords, motherfucker.
Yeah. I mean, and just like explaining that over time, like not in the heat of the moment, right before they don't want to do something great. I don't want to go out to dinner. It's like, I probably went out to dinner with my family like 15 times my whole life. Like, yeah. You don't want to go out to dinner? Are you fucking kidding me? Like, I would have done a backflip and cut off my left pinky to go out to the ground round and pay my weight for a kid's meal. Yeah,
we used to go to this place called Dirty's. That was if we went out, we went to a place called Dirty's, and I got chicken nachos, which was just chips and queso with nasty pieces of chicken on top, and I was like, "Fuck yeah!" Yeah. So I think there's a couple of things within this, and one of them is like the material question. Like, what do you do, like just with stuff? We're all probably a little overstuffed in our houses. Totally. Some of that is like birthdays and Christmases, like things just get out of control. Grandparents aren't, there's like, my job is to make them spoiled.
Something I've been working on, and I know that this is a dad thing. I hear about this a lot. Like, oh, dad's with the kids on a Saturday. I've done this. I'm not pointing fingers. I'm equally culpable here. It's just like, dad goes to the toy store. Yeah. And it's like, comes home with a bunch of shit. And then the mom's like, oh, cool story, bro. Like, now, 1, you're the cool guy. And 2, all this shit that is stressing out the mom. I don't do that anymore.
So there's a couple of ways I treat this. One of which is like bringing an attitude of frugality to life. There's this great Nick Offerman, before he got rich, was like, he grew up rural and was a carpenter for a long time. And he's like, when I started to hit it big in Hollywood, I thought all of my family back in rural America was so backward and so stupid. And because they weren't as socially progressive as he was. He said, but what I missed in that evaluation was that they had certain values that were extraordinarily important, like the idea of frugality. So I spend a lot of times, if something breaks, like if a toy breaks, trying to fix the toy with my kids. And maybe if the toy's unfixable, sometimes if it was just a sad accident, it's not very expensive, we'll get a new one. But sometimes we won't. And like if it's a backpack or something that they need, it's like, well, your next backpack's going to be kind of used and shitty. Because on the one hand, yeah, you can't make them walk around without a backpack. But on the other hand, it's not good to teach them that like losing your shit has no consequences. That's just not a good lesson. So I do think instilling these values is easy if you live on a farm and don't have, much resources. It's like, now you broke that thing, it's just gone. We can't do that. But I think if you do have the resources, you should still, even if it feels a little artificial, impose some kind of consequences when they just don't value their things.
Right.
And certainly if they break something because they got frustrated and threw it, it's like, well, there's not another one of those things coming. My daughter one time got frustrated and threw the family iPad. And I was like, baby, if that thing breaks, there's not another one of that. Mm-hmm. And she was just be funny. She's like, would I have to give you my allowance for months? I was like, baby, you'd be in your 20s by the time your allowance covered that iPad. Just saying hey, the things that we have value and you have to treat them that way. And if you don't, there's going to be a consequence there.
And the other thing is I think we talked about it on the allowance episode. If the kids have allowance, you lose your thing that isn't really a necessity, like a backpack. You want to get another? Yeah, you can get another one. You're going to have to buy that though. And there we go.
Then there's a second category of this, which is what you're talking about, the skiing, is them being grateful for the experiences that they get to have and the life that they get to live. And that to me is pretty tricky because that's a life they take for granted.
How would any kid ever know? That's the whole point of your own internal experience that's the only thing you see. It's very hard to imagine what your life would be like if it wasn't you,
Yeah.
But this is also where the childhood overindulgence comes from. In this article, it was a lot of it was oh, well, I didn't have these things as a kid.
So you want to give them to your kid.
Yeah, I always wanted them. So then I overindulge the kids. I don't know,
But it's funny. It's I didn't have these things as a kid, but I always wanted them. So I went out and I worked really hard and I achieved those things for myself. The first car that I got, my parents helped me buy. It was a cheap little car, but they really helped me buy it. And the way I felt about that car versus the first car I bought by myself, it's pretty different. There is something to the things you earn that you can't
Yeah, I mean, well, similar, but with my car, it was my parents would double, and my wife actually had the same setup. They just double the cash, whatever you were able to save. I think I saved $1,000. I got a $2,000 car.
What'd you get?
89 Jeep Cherokee. You rode around in that thing.
Oh, I remember that Jeep Cherokee.
It had a red hatchback.
Oh yeah, different color hatchback.
I put that on myself.
And you probably fucking love that car, right?
Yeah. Quick segue. I had just gotten it fixed. Cost $800 to redo the manifold because this thing was a piece of shit, and I had to pay $800 every time I needed to pass inspection. I finally ponied up the money. I was working at the clam bake, $5 an hour. Finally made the $800. Then my brother, who had just got his license, gets in the car. The car was so old and piece of shit, you could park it in drive. You could take the key out while it was in drive. So he parks it on our driveway. He gets out, and he doesn't realize this. The car just slowly rolls backwards and crashes into the neighbor's tree. No. I come home, and my car is borderline totaled from the back. It's all crumpled in. No. And I just gotten it fixed, and we had a party that weekend. I was like, no! Called up a junkyard. There was another hatchback. It was a blue Jeep, but I got the red back. I tried screwing it into the top. It wouldn't close. So I went to Home Depot, bought a chain, and did my own body work by tying a chain around a tree, hooking it to different parts of the bumper, and driving away at 30 miles an hour, and basically crashing the car until the back unaccordioned.
Oh my God.
And
that's
I fixed
amazing.
It over the course of 12 hours. And then that was the car you rode in.
Well, and the fact that you just told that story with a big grin on your face, or if your parents had all the money in the world, what if they just bought you, just taken it to the shop and gotten it fixed? That whole story would not be a part of your life.
Right. But there's a way to do both, because my mom also would every once in a while take us to Toys R Us and we'd get a Ninja Turtle.
Yeah, us too. Yeah, sure.
And it's I also had work ethic and fixed my car over the course of 12 hours. Mm-hmm. This episode is brought to you by the Milkless Patreon. If you want to keep listening, it's only going to cost $79.99 per month. We're going entirely offline, so you can no longer listen unless you pay $79.99 per month. Just kidding, it's fucking free. We're actually losing money on the episodes, but we love doing it for you. All we want is for you to tell a friend. Think about that one friend who listens to podcasts. They told you about serial podcasts. They told you about, and it's like, tell them about one.
Yeah.
And it's milkless.
Just return the favor. The $79.99 does get you feet pics from Max. So if you're into that. I remember I dated this girl in high school who was fucking loaded. Her family just had a ton of money. But they were a really nice family, and she was a very normal person for somebody who had grown up so affluent. But I remember there were things like and all of this is couched in plenty of wealth, right? But like one of the things she did was she rode horses. But when she was like 15, she got a new horse. So when she was 16, she got a shitty used car. Now, her parents could have bought her a herd of horses and a Bentley. But they were like, no, because we like spend money on you for a horse that was really important to you, you're going to get a lousy car. And then like her younger brother, who wasn't into horses, like got a nicer car than she did. And she now is the co-CEO of the family business. I remember always thinking it's like, okay, so all of this is happening on a grand scale because this family is so fortunate. But there's still an idea that things cost money and money is not infinite and there are trade-offs.
Well, that's important. You got to do that. So here's where here's a very tactical thing that I'm like, I don't know the answer to. I strongly believe when you are in college, you do not like buy coffee or when you're in your 20s, you make coffee at home. Uh-huh. My wife and I never, like maybe at like a special date, we on a weekend get a Dunkin' Donuts or a Starbucks. Uh-huh. Those are things you don't do in your early 20s because you need to be frugal. You got to like figure out your own budget. You got to figure out your life. You got to get the cheapest haircut you can. You got to do all these things, right? But then if you are successful in life, then you become that adult. You have the kids. Now I can get a Starbucks whenever the fuck I want. That's like, I've reached that point in my life.
Yeah.
And I can get a pack of gum at the fucking grocery store because I fucking want one.
Yeah.
But I can get it whenever I want because it's like, that's now within my budget and within my means. But I want to also teach the kids as they get older that like, no. In your 20s, you don't buy Starbucks, Frappuccino, latte, $7 drinks. You bring a sack lunch to work. Like, you need to save the fucking money. But I'm not giving them a good example because I can buy a wrap at Chipotle whenever the hell I want. It's not a big deal for me anymore.
Yeah, it's like you don't want to have to suffer just so your kids can see the example of suffering. It's like, no, I made it, but you haven't.
Right. They can't use me as a one-to-one copy in their 20s. They need to figure out frugality. So the only way I know how to do that is story. Do you know how many ramen noodles I would eat? Do you know how I did this? I feel like that's why kids get shitty over time because the parents who learn stuff, I don't know, then they maybe are frugal and then they make more money and then they spoil their kids. I don't know.
Yeah. This probably changes a lot with age too. I mean, I certainly knew, like we knew those kids in college that it's like their parents just were always filling their bank account. And we went to school with a lot of rich kids, but there were also those kids in college whose families came from a lot of money, but it was like, you're out on your own now. So you get like just enough to live on and go get a job. I think there's like some stuff that you can instill later. Yeah. And certainly in their 20s, it's like you help them with the things that they can't, you help them get on their feet. Like for a little while, my parents paid like my cell phone bill and car insurance for like the first year out of college. And I remember at the end of that year going to them and being like, okay, I'm ready. I don't want you to do that anymore. Like it was important to me to get off the teat, as it were. But I think what we're talking about here is more like, how do you create the kind of people for whom that kind of self-reliance is important?
Yeah, interesting. That like knowing that self-reliance is the thing, because I don't know, like I just hate the thing where I have said it. I say it like once a month. You guys don't know how good you have it, but it's like, I do want them to know that.
Well, another way to do that, and we talked about this some on when we had our friend Simon on here to talk about service, that like better than story is like, hey, have a look. True. That not everybody gets to live like that. I think that that's probably the best way to instill that. And then there's another thing that seems to be like a soft skill that you can start really early, which is don't rescue your kids from struggle.
Right.
And I fight this with myself, especially because like with little kids, if they're like trying to put their shoe on and they're like, you see them like, and you know, that's like, dude, we're going for the full, like the shoe throw and the I can't do anything and the tears.
Yeah.
And I tell my kids, like, ask for help if you need it. But I've really tried to scale back my instinct to jump in there and save them. Like when you remove the resistance between something they want and having it, that's where you get entitlement. Mm-hmm. Like they're supposed to feel headwinds. And by the way, they ask for this shit. I mean, like my 2-year-old says the word all by myself more than she says anything else.
Right.
They want that.
No, love it. All right. So I guess we solved it.
Well, one of the things that I think that is interesting that came out of it for me is the idea that like we say spoiled and we think we mean one thing, but it actually, there's a lot of different ways to interpret that. There's work ethic, there's grit, there's material, there's like an assumption of a certain kind of life. It's just not letting any of that stuff be unconscious. Even down to when it's a beautiful day or a beautiful sunset, I like try to bring my kids out and just be like, look at this. This is amazing. Look at how beautiful this is. Because we talk about it as adults. We talked about it on an episode recently. Like the ability to flex that muscle of gratitude consistently is a pretty big part of being happy. There's not the same solve for all these kind of different definitions of spoiled that we have, but I think being conscious of the things you have, being conscious of the work it takes between where you are and what you want, like just helping your kids like be aware.
One little life pro tip that I've been doing is like, I tend to be the guy that in the checkout line will buy a Kinder Egg or a pack of Tic Tacs or something that the kids can have in the car. That began to be expected.
Yeah.
That started to be like, oh, that's going to happen. I knew I needed to pull that back. Guys, listen, it's not expected because that's that entitlement that like, oh, every time I go out, I get something.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way. With that said, if you have the means and you want to have a fun little thing, then it's like, let's
you don't need to be a Scrooge. Yeah.
And also, it's like, who wants to come out with me to go to Home Depot? I'm going. There's a Kinder Egg in it for you.
Yeah, right.
A little bribery.
Yeah. But I have said to my daughter when she's like, when am I going to get a blah, blah, blah again? I'll say, as soon as you stop asking. Like, once you start assuming it's going to happen, that's when that's just going to be gone.
This episode of Milkless is brought to you by Violet Archer in the case of the Purple Martin. Thank you. Bye.